for this year, the downs and ups of life. So today we want to look at the book of First Kings, chapter 20. I'll read verse 28, but we'll deal with the 20th chapter in its entirety. Verse 28 of First Kings, chapter 20, you'll find these words. And there came a man of God and spake unto the king of Israel and said, Thus saith the Lord, because the Syrians have said, The Lord is God of the hills, but he is not God of the valleys. Therefore will I deliver all this great multitude into thine hand, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. And the church said, Amen.
Amen.
Life is about mountains and valleys.
Amen.
Mountains and valleys. The passage that I've read in your hearing talks about a man of God going to speak to the king of Israel. Well, who was the king of Israel? We'd have to go back a chapter or two, but it would tell us that Ahab is the king of Israel. Ahab ruled Israel for about 22 years. It was Ahab who married Jezebel. Jezebel was not an Israelite by birth. And so Ahab married her that was not a worshiper of God, and she brought with her idolatrous practices, Baal worship. And now Ahab has been influenced to allow idolatry, Baal worship in the borders of Israel. Israel, the people of God.
Amen.
And yet the leader is allowing for those things that do not honor God. Amen. Well, y'all know the story. God raised up that prophet called Elijah. And Elijah spoke to Ahab and said, now God is not happy with the condition of the nation of Israel, and so God's going to hold back the rain. God's going to prove to you that he's not happy and that there needs to be some repentance. And so God's going to hold back the rain. And as a result, then God, in the midst of holding back the rain, starts to do a work with the prophet Elijah. And so Elijah, God sends him by a brook, and God feeds him miraculously by some ravens by the brook. And the day comes, though, when the brook dries up, and God then he directs Elijah to go stay with a widow woman who's not a part of the nation of Israel. She's a widow in Zarephath. This is a Gentile nation that God sends the prophet to, and yet God promised to sustain him while he was there. This widow woman did not have a lot, but through obedience to God, God supplied all that they needed.
Amen.
But a day came when God told Elijah, now go show yourself to Ahab and tell him, I'm not happy. There's not been any changes made. And so Elijah goes to Ahab and tells him what thus said the Lord, and then tells Ahab this. He says, now tell the people to meet me at Mount Carmel, because we need to settle this matter once and for all.
All right.
He says, now, how long will y'all be halt between two opinions? If God be God, serve him. How long will you be halt between two opinions? With all of what God is doing, how can you not serve the Lord? When you look at how good God has been, what excuse do you have? Well, they go to Mount Carmel, and as it would be, all of those false prophets show up, and those who've been calling on gods that have eyes but cannot see, have feet but cannot walk, have hands but can't do anything. They were worshiping idol gods, the manufacturing of their own hands. And so now they thought that those gods had some power. And so Elijah says, I tell you what, here's what we're going to do. The God that answers by fire, let him be God.
Amen.
So Elijah said, now here's all of what is needed structurally for you to build an altar to your God and call on the name of your God. And the Bible said that those false prophets did so, and they started early, but by noonday they hadn't got an answer.
Yes, sir.
Elijah asked him the question, what's wrong? Is he hard of hearing? What's going on that your God has not answered you? Because if your God had any power, he would have spoken by now. And so then Elijah said, well, y'all step aside. Elijah takes then those things that were needful for his altar, and then he readies the sacrifice. Y'all know the story. God sent fire from heaven and consumed the sacrifice, proving that he and he alone is God Almighty. Well, now they still got a problem because it ain't rained yet. But now Elijah got to go pray and ask God to send the rain. And after he prayed, God sends the rain. Well, you would think that everybody ought to be convinced by now. But Jezebel gets word that Elijah not only called on God, but he slain all those false prophets of Baal. And Jezebel ain't happy.
Yes, sir.
She puts a contract out on him.
Yes, sir.
And tells him, now, I'm going to get you. Elijah then starts and gets on the move. So God catches up with Elijah and asks him the question, what are you doing here, Elijah?
Yes, sir.
See, this is not the place where I have ordained or purpose you to be. And so God works with Elijah. Elijah tells God, said, Lord, I'm the only one. When I showed up there on Mount Carmel, I was the only one that was taken up for you, Lord. And Lord, I was the only one that took a stand for you. And so now God fed him at that point, and Elijah moved on then to a mountain place, and he went into the cleft of the rock. And God talked to him again. And the Bible said, now God didn't talk to him loud, church. God talked to him in a still, small voice. Amen. Elijah, what you doing here? He repeated, Lord, I've been zealous for you. And it don't look like nobody but me taking a stand for you. God said, now wait a minute. I wanna first of all put you back on the right path.
Amen.
Because you my preacher. And I got some more preaching for you to do.
Yes, sir.
But he says this to Elijah. He said, now I have reserved for me 7,000 in Israel who have never bowed to Baal, nor worship the image of Baal. What is God saying? Elijah wasn't the only one calling on the Lord.
Yes, sir.
Although Elijah thought he was by himself, God had others. And so the question becomes, if you were Elijah, well, Lord, why haven't you put them in the game then?
Yes, sir.
Why did you send me to Ahab and that crooked Jezebel? Why did you send me? Well, now, God, if you're working for the Lord,
Yes, sir.
God will give you the power to do what he called you to do, and you don't have to worry about who else God's going to use. You see, God got a time, God got a way, God got a purpose that when the time is right, he'll raise up who he will raise up to do his will. Y'all come on and talk to me now, because we live in a day and time where there's some crazy things going on. There's some Ahab and there's some Jezebel still in the world today. But if you do what God called you to do, don't worry. When the time is right, God will raise up. Yes, he will. So now, God rescues Elijah. So then when we get to chapter 20, God tells us that the Syrians, the enemies to Israel, make war. They want to make war with Israel. They sin, and the king of Syria gives the king of Israel a message. I want all your gold. I want all your silver. And so send it to me, and send it right now. Ahab actually says, okay. But your silver and your gold. Well, now Ahab decides that, well, now he can't go along with that. The word gets back to the Syrian king that Ahab is rebelling now. And he's going to attack Israel. The king of Syria wants to attack Israel. That's an interesting thing. The king of Syria wants to attack Israel. Israel, who has been disobedient, stiff-necked, hard-hearted, worshiping of idols, the Syrians want to attack them. And yet, the Bible says God raises up a prophet to go tell the king of Israel, Ahab, God's going to give you the victory. I said, well, why would God do that? Ahab didn't deserve help from God. And all those idolatrous people who were worshiping Baal, they didn't deserve help from God. But before I could go any further, there was a mirror that I was looking in that said, you don't deserve it. Y'all ain't in here with me yet, are you? The mirror of God's word said that I could look at Ahab and see how he was so unworthy. But if I go to poking into my own life, and if folk could see what God sees, and if I would acknowledge what God already knows, and that is, I'm not worthy. So then, why did God rescue me out of stuff that he rescued me out of that I don't recognize that God can do that for somebody else? God sent a prophet to tell Ahab, the king of Israel, I'm going to give you the victory. And he gave him the victory by unusual means. As opposed to the standing army, God told Ahab that there were going to be 232 young men that were going to lead the battle. And then there were going to be 7,000 that would back them up. Now that still was a paltry number compared to the army of the Syrians. But when God tell you you got the victory, you got the victory. When God tell you you got the victory, you got the victory. Stay with me, y'all. I'm almost there. Those 232 young men. And it was prayed today in devotion that God would do a work with our young men, our young people. They got to learn how to come together, work together, settle their differences in a way that will build them all up. That's what we have in the text. Young men learn how to work together, and God worked through them to bring Israel a victory. God then warns Ahab, by the prophet, that Syria, though they have been defeated, gonna come back again. That the enemy won't stop trying. It's gonna show up again, so ready yourself. Well, when the Syrians get back to camp, they go to talking, trying to figure out how they lost. Because they had the bigger military. They had the bigger tanks. They had more artillery. And yet, they lost the war. They tried to figure out, how could that happen? Well, in verse number 23 of this 20th chapter, here's what the Bible says. The servants of the king of Syria said to him, their gods, speaking of Israel, are gods of the hills. Therefore, they were were stronger than we. But let us fight against them in the plain, and surely we shall be stronger than they. Here's what happened, church. They said the only reason we lost was because Israel had the home field advantage.
Yes, sir.
They had the home court advantage. And not only that, but the referee was corrupted when we played on their field. But if we could get them off their field and away from their referee, if we get them down here in this valley, we'll put the hurt on. Almost there. So they ready themselves. They prepare. And when you read the passage of the 20th chapter, they decided that whereas before, now the king of Syria had 32 other kings that were confederate with him to come against Israel. This time they said, well, now, maybe those kings really weren't real warriors. So now this time, we're going to get some real fighters. We're going to have some captains in place. And so we're going to go back at them again. And this time, we will, and that word was surely, we'll defeat them. We'll be stronger than them next time around. Church said amen. Well, now, the children of Israel, as God has said, Syria comes against them again. And as they now approach the battlefield, the Bible gives clear reference in verse 27. The children of Israel were numbered and were all present and went against them. And the children of Israel pitched before them like two little flocks of kids, but the Syrians filled the country. Can I take a step back? All right. Remember, first time they attacked them, God sent a prophet, an unnamed prophet. This time, in verse 28, a man of God is going to show up. Why doesn't God tell us who they are? May I offer a suggestion? God proves what he's already said to Elijah. When it was time for Elijah to do what God told him to do, it was for him to do it. But now here's Ahab again in trouble. But God sends an unnamed prophet and a man of God. See, church, God does his bidding. You know, the scripture said this: his thoughts are above our thoughts. His ways are far above our ways. God shows us that just like he told Elijah, do your part. And I got somebody else when their time is right to do their part. And God didn't do everything through the first prophet. He sent another man of God to do what he said. Just do your part. Just do your part. Stop worrying about what everybody else got to do. Do your part. When God tells you time to move, get a move on doing what God called you to do. And watch how God put that puzzle together. So now, they're at the battlefield. Notice, God allows the battle to be fought down in the valley. Y'all in here with me? And here's the reason. In verse 28, the man of God spoke to the king of Israel and said, thus said the Lord, because the Syrians, because the enemies have said, the Lord start blessing them. But as soon as trouble comes, and they got to go through a valley experience, we got them now. Long as they got money in the bank, they'll get up and go to church. But as soon as they get off that mountain, their stocks were up, and they were earning money. And they used to love to see the quarterly report come in. But if I can ever cause the stock market to crash, then they won't get up and go serve the Lord. I'll have them. That's what the enemy said. As long as their spouse is acting like they want them to act, they all right with the Lord. But let me call their spouse, let me call their children to start acting contrary. I'll get them off that mountain. Because if I can get them down in the valley, oh, I can handle them then. That's what the enemy said. That's an insult to the children of God. That the enemy thinks he can make you stay home on a Sunday morning and not come out here and give God the praise. That's an insult to you. That the enemy thinks just because you got to go through a valley experience. But it's a greater insult to think that God, Almighty God, is good in the mountain, but he ain't no good in the valley. Somebody ought to shout in here today. Because your life experience has taught you that the same God that you can shout and be happy with when things are going well is the same God who will walk with you and talk with you and be with you when you're down in the valley. When sickness comes upon you, you down in the valley. When heartache comes into your life, you down in the valley. When the one you love don't love you back, you down in the valley. When you ain't got a penny in your pocket, you down in the valley. When there ought to be somebody in here willing to testify that the God that's God on the mountain, he's God down in the valley. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Into the story, Israel wins the war. The God. The church, don't fret when you got to go through the valley. Don't fret. God's power is not limited to just when things are going well. See, the enemy thinks that we are just front runners. Yes, sir. There are some who can run as long as they out in front. Yes, sir. They play well in the game as long as they are up in the score. But here's how you tell a true champion. Yes, sir. When they're down on the scoreboard and the clock is running out, they play as hard when the chips are down as they do when the fans are cheering out in the stadium. See, there are some folks that when they're winning and the fans are cheering, they play all right. How do you play when the fans go to booing you? How do you play when it looks like your own teammates don't want to hustle and play hard? Here's what you do when you know the Lord. You resolve in yourself that the God that's a God when I'm winning is the God that'll keep me from losing. Y'all miss that, church. Y'all miss that, church. The God That's the God that we serve.
Yes, sir.
Even when it looked like you're losing,
Yes, sir.
God got a way.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I think God got a way, y'all. Excuse me now, but all y'all sports fans, y'all can recognize this.
Yes, sir.
There have been times when, at the end of the game,
Yes, sir.
folks thought the game was over.
Yes, sir.
They got up and started heading to the exit to get a jump on traffic. But they got there to the exit and they heard something. Back in the stadium, they heard the few folk that were left there, they heard a cheer out of the stadium. And they turned around and went back to see what was going on. And they found out that the team that didn't give up, praise the Lord. They made a miracle play. They made a miracle play. On the basketball court, they made a full court shot to win the game. Last play of the football game, they scored a touchdown. Baseball game, down in the ninth inning and down by 3 runs, somebody hit a grand slam and they won the game. The Lord will do it, church. God is God of the mountain, is God when you down in the valley, and if you will just give yourself to the Lord and give God your best, God will raise you up. Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Won't he raise you up? When everybody said you were down, won't he pick you up? Turn you around. Place your feet on a solid ground.